And basically you're going to see two things here, two interesting techniques, like how you can create complex scenes with just my face, how you can create complex scenes with just one layer, and how you can create a multi-shader to create multiple shaders for the cloner object, and how you can also check a good camera movement to make a good transition in your scenes. Okay, so I will just remove my face here, and this is the scene that we're going to investigate. It's loading on Cinema 4D. So if you can see here, you have an interesting movement that is almost like flowing from one concept to the other concept. The concept is you have a lot of layers in this entire universe of documents of Microsoft. And this look is like super, you will see that it's super simple, and it's more focused on the textures than on the lighting. So if you can see, this movement is pretty good. It's super soft. And you have something really interesting here. It's almost like a folder that is unfolding, and then the camera goes from this part to this one, like slow and then go fast, and then fast and slow. And because that happened, right, it looks like it's a good transition because it's intentional. Why? Because you have a movement from the shades here. This movement go from left to right, right? From left to right. And then you see this little bending on this paper here that is doing all the same thing. So basically you go from this scene to this one. And that's how you create this movement of seamless transition. This is an intention. When every time that you do a transition, you need to be intentional about the movement that is in the scene. It's not a matter of just making cuts. Like everybody just can make cuts or make beautiful renders, and you just put cuts on the cameras, but that don't make any sense. You need to tell the story in terms of movement. And now it's going from left to right, right? And then it's bending here. Okay, so let's try to recreate this scene, and let's see how it goes. We're going to create, a new document. And if you are part of the course, you have this startup scene that we put in the course. And I will show you what does that have. Basically it has this, all these materials, everything in Redshift, all this this for HDR and without it, and you will see, how beautiful is the scene. It's a pretty good starting point, to start any project. Now we're going to build a MoGraph object, but in terms of starting a project, it's always a good idea to start with something in base, so that way you don't need to create it. So all the nulls are here, all the cameras, right, and the environment and everything. Okay, so right now we don't need any environment. We're going to erase it, and we don't need any camera. And just in case you wonder what is this is basically, I have this camera over here, and if I go to display, it will display, all the composition elements. Right now, I have the grid on, and I have the golden spiral to create good composition inside the scene. Okay, so when you go to the camera and you go to display, you have all these options to see that on the viewport and to compose better scenes. But right now, we're not going to use them. Okay, and we're also going to erase or just mute those lights. And we don't have nothing, so we are going to erase everything that we have and start from scratch. Okay, so basically the first thing that we need to do is investigate the scenes a little bit. And one thing interesting in the scene that I saw here, and I will put a little bigger, is that my first impression was to make it with a plane. But I say, okay, the plane is good because it's pretty easy to manage and to unwrap and to get some textures. But of course, life is not easy. It's never easy. So these guys, if you can take a look of, for example, this texture over here, this is just purple. And then when you go this way, you will see another layer of icons here. Same as this one. You have, the interface of the UI here, but on the other side, you have just white. So that means it's not a plane, because in a plane, I cannot do that. Also in the beginning, you have this blue in one side and you have this orange in the other side, right? If you can see the orange, it has these little dots that we are going to recreate also in the textures. Okay, so basically that's one thing that noticed to me, that I need to create a box, not a plane. Okay, so let's do that. We put this in 90 and 16 by 9 to have more space, and we're going to create, of course, a cube that I don't know why I see this. Okay, the attributes are here. Perfect. Okay, so this is 1, and this is going to be almost like a paper size, so I will increase it. I think 320 or 400. Yes, this is almost like, you know, a paper, like A4 letter or something like that. Okay, so right now we don't have any like polygons. If you want to see here, like it's just not too much polygons, nothing at all. So we need to increase that. Sorry. And not too much, because we're going to subdivide it later, but we are going to increase the X and Y to have this, you know, this grid, right? To be able to put better things here. So, and one thing that we are going to do is, of course, put this in environments and put it on the right null object with a T. Okay. And let's see if my microphone is recording. Yes, it's recording. Okay. And then we need to bend as this movement. And I will put, so we need to bend it as this movement in the beginning, right? Is the tip bending. Okay. So what we need to do here is to create a bending object, right? So to create an a modifier that attached to my shape, you need to go to the modifiers, and this is bend. And if you press Control, meanwhile you're selecting, so I select the cube and I go and press Control and unleash the click, it will create the bend on the same, you know, shape that our cube. So now that we have that we can bend it, is bending on the size of the cube. Of course, this is not the direction that we want, but that's the idea. Instead of, because the other option that all the time we do, or at least I do in the beginning, and I create the bend. sorry. And I put it here and I start to, you know, to making the size and things like that, but that's not worth it. So that's why it's super useful to press Control and then go to the bend, and that's it. But we don't want to bend in this direction. This is not the direction that we want to bend. So what is that direction that we want to bend? Is this one, right? So this is the direction that we want to bend. But we don't want to bend the entire structure as we see it here. We just want to bend the tip of that. Okay? So how you do that? You go to the bend. First, we just want the tip. Okay? And we rotate it a little bit. And start to put it just in the top. So right now, if I see just the top, it's just the top bending. Okay? So if I go to, you know, boom, boom, now it's just the top that is bending. And that's what we need in the beginning. We need something that is bending from this angle to this angle. Okay? So we go to -280 and put a like a keyframe, and then we count like how many seconds, how many frames does this animation has. So right now it's from 0 to like 39. Okay, 30, 38. So let's put it 37. Okay, so we go to the 37 frames, and then we go to the opposite side. If I go too fast or something, or someone wants to ask a question, just go ahead, raise your hand, and we can, you know, have a moment there. Okay, so now that we have this animated, right? This is super boring. So we need to create another bending. That's right now, I want to bend just the tip. So because I have this almost like this is modular, it's not, you know, destructive, I can increase or decrease whatever size I want to have more variations for that. So I will create a little more variation. So I will create this this first bend more as a, you know, as a regular bending, and I will create the other one just in the tip, and I will increase that a little bit. So I will create this pretty short, like yeah, it's like 50, and then I will put it up. And if you can notice, whatever the tip it is, it will create, you know, this bending that will create a little more information there. And the tip, I wanted to slightly increase it. You see how it's like it's rotating a little bit, and on the other side, and it's rotating pretty good. So that will create a little more variation on our movement. Okay, so now we have this movement over here that is more dynamic instead of just in one bend. Okay, you see, let's play it along. Okay, so that's what we want. Okay, perfect. So with the bend, remember pressing control, and you have any modifier that you press control, it will create it will recreate the shape of your object. Okay, this is non-destructive yet, so we don't need to have that destructive. So let's go ahead and create now a cloner for this one. Okay, so let's put it on our zone that I think this is the middle zone, don't have any confusion. This is the 18, yeah, 17. Okay, and also we need to press the control for our clone be in the same place that the object is right now. Because if I just choose a cloner, it will put on the middle of the screen. I'm in the middle of the scene. So that's no good, because I want to keep the same position at this object. So press control on the cloner, put it up, and then I go to the cloner object. And right now, of course, as default, is creating a grid, but I need to go just linear. Why? Because I just want to create in the Y and the Z axis the variation. Okay, in this case the X, but it's looking like a Z. Okay, so we go 0 here, and we go super short, like 0.5 here, and you will see that this will, you know, create I think maybe just 1. Okay, and now I can increase the number, and even that this is too much, so let's put this on 0.5, and I will create a 0.5 here. Okay, all the numbers need to be matched. So we have 15 layers. I counted 15 layers on our simulation. If we go here, it's like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14, it's not 50. I counted before, so I will not count it again. Okay, so and the magic here is, like, of course this is super boring because everything is doing the same movement, is nothing happened, right? But the good thing now that we have an animation, that we have keyframes, that we can use some modifiers to modify that. And the modifier that we are going to use is the MoGraph step effector. So we're going to put in the environment. Of course, the step effector, the parameters is affecting the scale. I don't want to affecting the scale. I just want to affect the time offset of the animation that are inside here. So if I go to decrease, you know, the step effector, you see, is creating an offset on all the animation. So if I go to this side now, it will create an interesting movement, and we are going to remove the deformer here. So not the deformer, the generator, but it will, yeah, it will create, it will put everything down. Okay, we're just going to take this off. Okay, so now because I have the step effector, everything is moving accordingly to an offset of the keyframes. So that's what we want, because basically what we need is a movement of objects going from one side to the other side. Okay, of course that this need more works because it's not there yet. So we don't need to have this movement here. We need more, start from here and going to here. So right now the keyframes are too fast, right? So we need to decrease the speed of the keyframes. So we're going to press this button over here, and we're going to see the timeline. And because we have just one modifier, we can just go and start to playing with this to see our result. Okay, you see, so if you now go to this place and I'm going to this one over here, it will start to create, you see. So now the step effector need to be more aggressive, like -40 or something, -35. And now where is it? Here. And now if I play with the timeline here, you will see that we're going to start with this. Okay. Ooh. Okay, let's do it until 25, 27. Okay, so now we have this movement right now that is something that we can play with, right? So we put, you know, different camera angles, you will see, you know, how the movement is going. You see? Perfect. Still it's a little too fast, I think. So let's decrease our timeline. Let's decrease it. Okay, perfect. So now we need to match our cameras. So the first camera is almost like something like this. When we see the beginning, and one important thing here is like we have this bending object on the back. So it also has, you know, a back bend deformer. So let's try to put our first camera first. And I think we can put this in 0, and this is 0.3. No, not yet. This can be 0.1. Okay, let's see. Okay, perfect. And now this bend is a little too much, so I will put it more like this, so that way we can have a little more space. And the back, we want to put it on the other side, so we want to see the back and stop the cloner. And the back, we want to put it this on the other side, and reverse it. Let me erase the modifiers here. Let me erase the keyframes on the back. And now we can see it better. Okay. So we are going to put it 180 in this way. And now we can bend the object a little more. Okay, so now we can bend the object to the other side and put it something like this. Okay, so now we can go to the cloner object and we can create our camera. So let's create our first camera. And you know, the back can be on the other side, something like this, to emulate. So if we create a camera, perfect. So we go to the perspective now, and we want this to bend a little bit. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's create our first camera here. Let's try to bend and put the angle a little down, so that way we can have a little variation to this section over here. And if we put our cloner object a little bit offset also in our Y, we can start to see something right there. Okay, something like this. Okay, so we can also add another step effector that now will to affect the Y axis, and we are going to put it on our cloner object. In this case, the parameter is not the offset, it will be the position, and in the position we can see the Y axis over here. Okay, and this needs to be a little more close to what we want. Okay, so right now we can create for the first camera something like this. We can remove the effect meanwhile and place this in a good position. Okay, perfect. So now we create our first camera over here that is matching something like what we have on the scene, maybe a little more close. This is always challenging, like creating the cameras is you need to take the time to do it. Okay, so we have the first camera here, almost like in this scene over here, and we need to create our second camera. So this is our first camera. We put it on camera tab, and we are going to create a second one. And the second one is, if we go to the movement, we put the camera, and if we go to this place over here, the camera is almost like here, you know, facing all the papers with a little rotation, right? Something like this. So it's facing all the objects right here. And the back is starting with one bending and is ending to the other bending. Okay, why is not affecting? Okay, so why is not affecting? Oh, okay. Just refreshing. Okay, so now that we have our second camera here, that is basically almost like over here. We are going to create a morph between both cameras, because we need to go from this camera to this camera. Okay, so now we just duplicate the camera and say morph, and we go to the camera tags and we create a camera morph. And that we have, you know, we have the simple morph and the multi-camera morph. So multi-morph, you can put all the cameras that you want, and the simple morph, you can just choose two cameras. In this case, we're going to just 2 cameras here. And in this first slot is the camera that's starting in the 0%. And the second slot is the camera going for 100%. So if I select my morph camera and I go from here to here, I will have a movement. And this is basically the first movement that the camera has, like something rotating, boom. And we're going to recreate that movement. Okay, so in the beginning, this is 0%. And then in the end, we have 100%. Okay, so now we are going to create, you know, this movement that is pretty beautiful, that is surrounding the element. Okay, so the good thing about it is, like, we have this movement over here. Someone wants to join the call. Let's see. Okay, everyone is moving. So that we have the movement, we see a little movement over here on this camera that go from like close to far and then make a transition. So that is pretty easy to do. Basically, you go to the second camera and you go to the frame that you think that will work. For example, in this case, I think it's the frame 20, and you put the camera in a null. Why in a null? Because you have more control using the camera inside a null object. You have so much more control here. Okay, so you have the 0.2 and you select the null and you put a keyframe here and you go to create this further away movement that it has. So that's one movement, and the other movement we're going to do it in the camera itself. So if you press this button, it will create, you know, a keyframe for everything. That's good for cameras if you want to move it manually. So here, and then if we see the reference, it's almost like finishing with something like this, and a little more further away, something like this. Why? Because it has you know, it needs to has the end frame for the other scene. Okay. So now that we have here, we need to understand that these linear movements are not good. So we go to our timeline. And now that we have both movements or our cameras, let's put our second camera here too, and our null. And we need to give a little space. Why? Because we want to put some curves here. Basically, the curves that we see in the reference is from slow to fast. So that's what we need to do. We need to press this one that create the curves here. And we are going to create, let me put it a little more close. Okay. Perfect. And now we choose these keyframes and we extend a lot because they need to be you know, super slow in the beginning, and these ones need to go all the way here. So it's basically a curve saying like it's going super slow and then boom fast, and then when we went super fast, we cut the scene. Okay, so we put this not in the last frame, in the frame outside. Why? Because I don't want the movement to finish. I want to almost finish. Okay. So now you will realize that the cameras now are a little more improved. So you go into the morph camera. So you see the camera here and then boom. And then you see this movement that is go off, right? So the super simple, perfect. So now let's create, you know, our lights and our materials. And basically what we see here is like we have a big reflection. Probably this is too small, but let me try to put it a little more. Okay, so you have a big reflection over here. So basically, you know, it's a light that's coming from the top. And don't worry about, I will explain how you can soft these edges too, because it's super hard right now. And basically, what would you do to do that? Let's create a render preview right now. Do you have any doubts, anything that you want to, you know, to talk about meanwhile? Good, be good. No, everyone's good. You can just unmute yourself and then just talk. Okay. So basically, I mean, I will just put the lights that we did before. They will seem provide. Yes, I will provide the scene at the end. So don't worry. Okay. So it doesn't want to copy. So let's move with this file here. That is the main file. And so is everything clear from the perspective of doing this motion, right? Everything is clear. Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Awesome. So I'm waiting my computer because I think it gets stuck a little bit. Okay, it's there. Perfect. Okay, so basically, I mean, now we have the same movement that we did before. So basically, it's the same. I just did the same, exactly the same. If you can notice, like, it's the same movement. You see? Okay. Okay, so what we did here is to create this lighting on this scene. It's we're going to go to the perspective and you will see the light, because basically you have a light that comes from the top and it's affecting the side. We're not going to see it. And if you want, to learn a little more about, the lighting of what we are discussing right now, we have a course about lighting. Let me show you pretty quick. Okay. So you want to learn a little more about how light you're seeing and how you can check with other, artists on the Discord and everything. We have a perfect instance for you. That this is the one that we have a master lighting course. That is some of the members are here. So if you want to speak out a little bit, it will be awesome. But basically the course is teaching you like these 14 lessons about the principles of cinematic graphic lighting and what everything does to understand more the software and to understand the basics of how you do butterfly lighting or spot lighting, split lighting and everything regarding the cinema and how do you apply that into the 3D. So it's teaching you how to make simulation, these textures on the fabrics, your custom light texture, that's super important. What is this placement map, how you can dissect and study scenes from the big studios. That's basically what we're doing right now. And animation bonus and camera techniques. The links is in the chat. And Nacho is going to send you a special code just for today. So the coupon code naturally is $2.99, but we'll have a coupon code for this webinar. Okay, so it will be in the chat too, and you can just go and be part of this amazing thing. It's always a good idea to invest in yourself and to acquire new skills. So I invite you to do this. Okay, so basically I have here two options to light this. I mean, one option to light and two options to get shaders here. The lights that we use here basically are super simple. I don't know why the perspective is not showing me nothing. Okay, it was too close. Okay, so basically what we did here is to create an top light over here. Okay, this is our main light that is basically creating the separation and the shadows between the files. And you have another top light that is the one that is using the same reflections that we see in the reference. That is almost going from the side. If you can see the reflections going from this side over here. Okay, and also create a little dense shadow that you can see in the reference, that this is the dense shadow. It's pretty hard. So it's basically creating the same reflection and the shadow. And you have the rim light. That's basically the light that coming from behind. And this one is this one over here. So it creates a little more depth and it will add a little more details in terms of you know, on this side over here and everything. And we have another one that this is more a fill light that is on this side to illuminate this part a little bit. Okay, so basically that's super simple lighting. You need to understand that lighting is basically shadow, reflection, and what you want to get as the main character on the scene. And that's super basic, but you need to understand the concept to be able to tell the story better. And you have two options for the shaders now. Let's put on the camera now. I remember that I say to you that you have this, you know, for example, this layer, it has two sides. One side is white and the other one is the UI for the Microsoft. And basically it does what you see here. Like on one side, you know, is white, and the other side is as this Microsoft thing. So, okay. So how you do that? Basically, I take this plane, because I just used one plane. I take this plane. In this case, this is many because it's two options to shade this. So I will show you later. So I will take one plane. I will put it on a new file. I'll just erase everything that I have. I will stop the viewer a little bit. And I don't know if you're familiar with UV mapping. No, okay. So if you raise your hand if you're familiar with UVs inside Cinema 4D. Okay. Cool. Perfect. Perfect. So basically this is super simple to UV, but I have a special like something for you. Basically here in the UV edit, you will see that I have this almost UV now. The UV is already, but this was not like this. So basically what you do in the UV, you create the seams, and the seams you put it on this part, the cut selected edges, and just apply, and it will create the seams. But I have another option for you that will be really good for other things. Let me know if you have any question. Okay, perfect. Your render workflow was a big advantage to learn through the course. Yes, yes. The render workflow is pretty good to create, you know, the passes and everything. Thank you for that, Puya. Okay, I have a surprise for you. I don't know if you're familiar with, let me put a new file. I don't know if you're familiar with the software that's called Rhizome to UV. Let me create a sphere. So for example, the sphere came with this UV that is pretty bad. Yes, for unwrapping. So I will show you what is that. So I will create, you know, this sphere that is pretty bad. And I have this software that is called Rhizome. Then I will show you now. Like it's pretty cheap. I mean, also you can find it. I think as a trial. So I will run the software for you. I can show you. Who's waiting? Okay. So this is the software. This is Rhizome. It seems like a little complex, but it's not that complex. So don't worry about that. So this is software that is called Rhizome UV. Okay. And what it does is pretty simple. You just need to think about this part over here. Okay. And for example, I'll have this sphere selected. I go to extension and I go to Rhizome and I go to export to Rhizome UV. You can always do that with Substance Painter too. If you're familiar with Substance Painter, you will have an unwrap part on that software that will do the unwrap for you. But if you don't have the Substance or you don't have to use it, like this is pretty good. So we go to the Rhizome here. And it's opening. Okay. I'm gonna put it here. Give me 1 second. Okay, so basically I have the texture now. I can have the, you know, the object now, and the red is because this is too white. The substance unwrap. Yeah. I mean, I think Rhizome is more specific. Like this is pretty good when you use characters, when you use complex scenes, or just one element and you want to create unwrap in just one element. This software is amazing. It's super simple to use. Why? Because it's super intuitive. So I will show you. So for example, I have this that is pretty bad. The blue is because the parts are too, like it will be too small, right? And the red is because it's too like bright. I mean, it's too big. So how you can do that? For example, I just want to see, I can double click, one click. If you press like Control, I mean Shift, and you press a double click here, it will create a loop selection. So if I double click, just double click, it will create a loop selection, and I can create the seam over here, or I can create it on this part, or I can create it on the back. So if I double click here, it will create a loop just in the back. Imagine this is the back of the object. Okay, so now you create the cut and the unfold and the optimize, and now you will see because I have more cuts, so I need to remove those cuts. Weld. So I will select everything and I will do weld, so that way I don't have nothing, and I will create a double click on this part over here. So you select everything, go weld, and you select the seam, and you put cut and unfold, optimize, and you can put it here on the fit, optimize, and then you will see that this is showing me the errors that are happening on this cut. So this cut is not good. Why? Because it needs more information. So if I go and remove this, and I will put another cut here, and I will go the uncut and optimize, it start, you know, to creating this more effective UV. That is not good right now. So I need to create another one, and you start to clean the scene, right? And I think I need to remove this one. Weld, okay, unfold, optimize. Or I can just, for example, I can just this one, and you will see that you will need to start to see what's better for your model. Okay, yeah, in this case I think updated unfold. Okay, perfect. So if I choose this one and I make a cut, you start to see now that it's going to be more uniform, but I need another cut over here. Okay, so now it's starting to create a little more interesting UV, and if you put this, it will fill, you know, the zone here. You can also scale or fill, or, you know, do whatever you think is good. But right now I want to unfold and optimize, and yeah, so I have this seam over here, but I mean, you got the idea. I'm not seeing why I'm not using it for this thing, but squares and more like hard surface is more easy. I don't know why it's not doing it so good with this sphere right here, but let's continue. So that's why I did this one. It was pretty simple. Okay, so it was pretty simple because, you know, I just select the edges for the boxes, and I create two faces. This is the back, this is the front, and of course the sides of this paper. Okay, so how you have two options to get these textures. The first one, let's put on another layout. Okay, so the first one is, because Redshift is sometimes a little complicated. The first one is to create multiple shapes, as here on the cloner, and start creating one element, I mean one texture on each layer, and you will add it here, and you have also more control about the normals and everything. So basically, for example, on this object right here, I have the two faces covered. One face on this color and the other face on the other color. And on the other one, for example, in this one, I use the unwrap. This is the texture number 6. And it's super simple because I have, you know, a object with a texture, right? And, you know, the reflection with the roughness respectively and everything. And on the other ones are also super simple. For example, this first one, and I will put it here. I will start the open viewer for you can see. Okay, we'll start getting a little more quality, but this one is basically a flake noise roughness. This flakes noise, I will show you the texture here. Any questions so far? Anything that you want to ask? Anything you want to add? It will be wonderful. Yeah. Or now, you can unmute yourself and just ask the question. Can you unmute yourself? Oh, how do you get the round corner? Yeah, good point. Okay. Okay, so this is the texture that I used. It will be also be with the file that I'm sending. Okay. This is the one that I use for you can use, you know, for bump, you can use for whatever you want. This is pretty good. Okay, that's a good point. How you keep this thing rounded? We're going to go to the other. That's super like it's super similar, right? Like here. Okay, so how you can create these corners? Basically, you have this unsubdivided object, and you can do it with subdivision and everything and things like that, but it will be a mess because this will mess a little bit your textures, your unwrap, basically, and we'll add more geometry into the scene. So that's not a good idea. So I will copy the lights to have the same perspective that we have here. Okay, now it's copy the lights. Okay, so you see that it will take a little longer to, because it has no shaders, you see it this way. Let's remove the dome and let's decrease this top. Okay, so basically what you have here, it's a subdivision that's basically do the same, but you can save time and you can save headaches because subdivision, it will mess your unwrap a lot in the corners. So you don't need this. We need to optimize the time, and basically you create a render tag for the Redshift object, and you go to the geometry and the override, and then tessellation, you put it on. And when you put tessellation on, it will, you know, round the corners without the extra effort on the subdivisions. Okay, so that's what we did here. And if you take a look, that is super similar. Where's the picture viewer? Okay, good that you like that one. It's super similar that they have. Basically, they did this. They used this method. I'm 100% sure. Okay. So let's go to the file that we have right now. So that's how you put the corners rounded, and that's a big difference on the style. You see? Let's load it a little bit. Okay. So what I did is have two options. You create all these duplicated and create this pretty organized, and that way you can have different, you know, normal maps, and you can create each material for each paper. That create a lot of creative freedom. Or if you want to save time, I have another thing for you that is pretty interesting. That's basically you can have just one layer, but with a method that is called multi-shader. So what is multi-shader? When you go to create in the material manager, create materials, you have an option that's called multi-shader. So materials multi-shader. And what the multi-shader does is basically create a lot of shaders, different shaders for your scene. So the first one that I did is create one like manually, and this unfortunately I don't know why it's not working with node editor yet. It's working just for the with the shader graph, but I will see here that this is my shader graph. I know it looks a little messy, but it's not that bad, trust me. I will let you know what is going on here. I will put some little more space over here. Okay. Okay, let me put some space. Okay, good. Okay, so basically what a multi-shader does is create a lot of shaders in just one object. And this works with MoGraph ID. So basically, whatever ID I have inside a MoGraph, I can create a different shader. And basically, the shader is just for a color purpose. You cannot manage like different normals or different displacement. It's just for colors. But because we have an unwrap object, you can create everything on your Photoshop file, and you can create different shaders there. But you can also make it more manually. For example, here I use the noise that I showed you before, the noise texture, to create a mixed amount between two colors. So I create these two colors, for example, and it creates this mix. So let me show you. This one is the index 1. So if you go to in the beginning, you will see that unfortunately this method, it creates not so much control, because if you go to the multi-shader, that also you can put, you know, I did some texture here, just a texture, just this one. I create just a color for a lot of them, just one color, just absolute color. I create this color mix with the texture for a mix amount, and with the invert, you know, it's pretty simple, like basically two colors, and you can create the noise, and then each color receive the value of the noise. And just one color, a lot of them is just one color, and other thems are just textures. You cannot put existing materials here, that's a shame, but you can, you know, create the material and then put it there. So you can create that in this way, more manually. And the other option that you can create a multi-shader is pretty interesting. It's you create where is the getting this way. Okay. Okay, and the other one is this one, that basically what I did here is I create a bunch of images regarding the UV unwrap for the file, and you create all these images and you put it in one folder. In this case is this folder over here, you know. So the text folder, it creates all the images. Okay, so for example, I will create a new folder and put some multi-shader, and I will duplicate this, where you can see. So I'll select all of them, I'm copying them. Okay, so everything is just in one folder now, 1 2 3 4 5 until 15, all my layers, and they are pretty simple. Let me show you. You know, it's like they're super simple texture. I have the UI for the Microsoft. You have this one that has you're welcome, Wabang. How you can make duplicates while maintaining the motion from cloner step. What do you mean, Gino? Can you explain that a little more? So for example, this is one texture, okay? So don't lose more time on this. So the other way that you have this is the multi-shader, that basically you go to the shader graph, and this is more simple, right? So you go to this multi-shader over here, and you choose add from folder. So I will click the add from folder, and it will ask me what folder is the one that I wanted to use. So in this case, we want to use the multi-folder. So you select the folder, and when you select the folder, everything is loading, you see? Everything will be on the order that you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 until you finish, okay? That's always like a good idea when you use cloners. First you have the for the cubes, yes, but later you have one layer for each page, I think. Oh yeah, basically, I mean, I want to create this, you know, this image, and we need to create multiple textures for this cloner. Okay. Oh, it's loading the textures. So let think Redshift loading textures first. Okay, so basically, I mean, you have two options there. One option is to, let me pin my image. So one option is to create, you know, more instances inside the cloner object, and on each instance you put the texture that you want. So, and the cloner object will respect the order from the bottom to the top. So the bottom will be the first and the top will be the last. So let me show you. If Cinema is responding, maybe it freezes. I don't know. Let me check. I will end, you know, yeah, Cinema 4D, it's not responding. No, don't save. I have open After Effects too. Don't save that. Okay. Can you hear me? Still hear me? Because I think my camera just died. Okay, cool. I think I need to restart the Cinema 4D because it's it getting stuck. Yep. Let's see if it's responding. No, it's not responding. Okay, my camera here is good. Okay, now you can see me. Cool. And yep, it's not responding. So this thing happened. We're in the motion design world. Cinema 4D crash. So much info that we put in. So we're going to restart it. So meanwhile, we'll ask you a question. Try to ask it, you know, theoretically. Basically, you have the cloner object, and the cloner object, it will use whatever object you have inside the cloner, right? So if you want 15 cloners and you put 15 instances inside the cloner object, it will recognize each with one ID. So each instance, it just use one ID. Okay, so that's a Cinema 4D opening right now. And the other option with the multi-shader for Redshift is to create this multi-shader with this. Basically, you are doing the same, but inside the shader. But the limitations there is like you can just create the color and you create, you know, how it looks, not the normals, not the displacement. If you want to do that, you need to create the amount of instances that you want inside the cloner. And that way you will manage better the instances because you can control, you know, the normals and everything that I talked before. So I think it's opening right now. And the other option, I mean, but the thing is like you don't have too much control on the ID. So you need to go and manually try to put that on the ID, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm opening the scene right now. Okay, you have a question, Felina? Let me see the chat. You can just unmute yourself and just ask the question. Okay, for example, I will use this multi-shader from scratch because, you know, my Cinema 4D and I didn't save the last iteration of the file. So let me go to the one that we have here with this multi-shader. And I will use this one that I have here. And I will stop the render, I think. And before I will use the multi-shader. Okay, so let's do it from scratch. Actually, let's do it from really scratch. So materials, multi-shader, okay? You go double click, you go to shader graph. This cannot use a node editor, like I mentioned before. You go to this multi-shader and you open it this a little bit and it says add from folder. So you will create a folder and choose whatever folder you want, and you have all the texture organized by number because it will respect the order of your numbers, and it will load, you know, all the texture that you have in the folder. So in this case I have 15, so these are 15 shaders, so that's why it says lots 15. You see? I don't know why I get stuck in this part. You don't like in this method, I think. Okay, so what is the question here? Out of the options, which is the best practice? I like more the manual because you have more control in the manual work. Even that is not that manual because it's probably like 3 minutes. I mean, if you have 200 objects, I will say just go for the multi-shader because it's super simple. But if you have like this amount of object that you need to see in detail what it has, what thing it has, what, if that's a good thing to say, you know. And I think, you know, the Google Chrome is the problem here. Let me try to. So yeah, it depends. If you have 1,000 objects, you know, you don't want to create 1,000 instances yourself, and you can also manage the amount of iteration in the material. For example, you have 1,000 objects and you have like 20 possibilities. You create, you know, those 20 possibilities inside the multi-shader. But if you have less than 15 or 20 and you want to be more manual, the best option is to create that because you can control, you know, normals, displacement, reflections, and you can control everything inside the material. You know, that makes sense? That answer your question? Yeah, no, it doesn't like this method. My computer doesn't like this method. Okay, perfect. Okay. Yep. I mean, no, it's not responding. Okay, it's responding now. Cool. So I added the multi-shader. I choose the folder. The folder has all these textures. Imagine you have 1,000. This is pretty useful when you have a lot. So you put it on the cloner. Start the render. Hopefully, it will start the render. Let me remove my face from the stream. No worries, man. Thank you for the question. And you can also ask me anything right now that we're waiting. Anything related, of course, with Cinema 4D. Anything at all. So, and the thing is, like, how you control this is basically here you can up and down your textures. Okay, so let me show you that. So let's wait until that thing load, and you have all the shaders here, you know, from 1 to the 15, right? And you can go, I don't know why it's taking so long to process those textures. I mean, probably because it's 8K each texture. I think I put it too much resolution. Arnaud, you can just ask a question. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, you received me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can hear you pretty well.
Just about the multi shader you have here on the screen. Yeah, assuming you put these on the diffuse, so I guess you can always put another some roughness, some reflection, some normals, but this will be the same for every slide, right?
It's like
you can always put these, complete the RS material with some other.
Exactly. I mean, are you asking if it's just controlling the color?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. This multi-shader only controls the color. That's the bad side of that. But at the same time, I mean, if you have something 100 objects on the cloner, it's because probably that object, it contains the same reflection, it contains the same normals. It's pretty hard to, at least of course there's exceptions, right? But the possibility to control everything else inside beside the color, it will be just by hand. In Redshift right now, you have that option. In the in the normal standard Cinema 4D render, you have the option to control more things. But right now in Redshift, you have this option. And if you see like anything is not working because this is selected as an index. Basically, it's not saying nothing. I need to put MoGraph ID, and if I place MoGraph ID, it will recognize all the IDs that I have here. Do you see? So now it's and for example, this is a good example. The reflection is totally off, right? Because the roughness is 0. So my roughness for this object is 0.33. So I change the roughness, it will change for all the objects. And if I want to remove, I don't know, sorry, if that's answer your question or not?
Yeah, sure. It was just a bit confused, but now I understand a bit more the idea. It's just for this example, this actual example, this solution seems to be much more easy to apply, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to the other one, no?
Yes, exactly. I think I prefer manually in this because I can choose the order easily. And it will create the same time, because creating all these shaders, it will take the time, you know? But like I said, if this, you know, if this folder will contains like 100 objects, I will probably do it this way. Because in this RS material, it has anything that you want. It's a material. You have, you know, the SSS, you have the overall, the omission, the opacity, you know, you have here in the output, you have the displacement. It's like you have everything. You have the normals here. You have everything that you have in the same material. It's just that the diffuse colors entering into multi-shader. I mean, you can also, for example, if you use another multi-shader, probably you can use it for normals, you know, if you want random normals. Yeah, I mean, probably you can do that. Because if we go to the multi-shader here, right, and we create another instance of this, And if we go here and we decide, you know, the bump map, for example, I mean, you need to create iteration for bump map here also, right? Like you need to create the bump map, right? And but at the same time, probably it will, you know, it will create a different bump map, because this basically is connected to the MoGraph ID of whatever object I have in the scene. So right now, you know, they have this cloned object that it has 15 instances, and each instances it has an ID. That's how it works, right? So when I say, for example, I have this material over here, this multi-shader, and I have all the shader here, and I want this up, it will change the order for the textures. You know, if I go up and down, I can decide which one is up front and which one is not. That's the only control that I have here. You know, you know, it's changing the order over here. For example,
and can you if you want to take one of those and put it on the top,
yeah, you can do that.
The first
So you can
the
drag
first
it.
level. Can you
you
do it, or do you have to go up until the end?
Yeah, exactly. That's why that's why it's super important how you put your folders also in order, because basically what you do in the folders that you choose the order here. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like you put the names accordingly to the order that you want. You know?
Yeah, so you have to define yes. it earlier, and then
exactly. And then, yeah. And I mean, and the other side that I don't like in this method, and I like more the other one, it's for example, I'm using the OV wrapping here, right? The UV mapping. If I use the, you know, the cubic, it will create, you know, a different thing. So and it will affect all the layers by the same. So I don't have so much control. If I have a UV mapped object, is good. But if I want to use the cubic or another like projection method, it will create some problems. So meanwhile, when I do it this way, you know, I have more control about each element separately. So it all depends of these scenes. Like regularly, these scenes from these studios, they use a lot of automation in the process, but in the end layer they use manual work, and that's how, you know, you can see the difference on the shots. You will start to study them, you will see, and when you recreate them, you will see that they use a lot of automations. That's the same as we did here, that we can create, you know, all this step effector and everything. But if you really want to create details, that's manual work. And that's the extra layer that you do at the end. I don't know if that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good workflow. Like doing things like automatic the most possible, and the last layer you will create like a manual work. Something imperfection, like create something imperfect. Like that's pretty good. And basically that's it. I mean, that's the thing. If you notice this movement, it will create, you know, you need to understand that always the scenes communicate with the previous and the next one. Like I say that a lot, but the scenes or the shots are part of one big narration. And if you consider like the idea behind it, like you need to understand that, I'll open my face a little bit to express my hands. You need to understand that the scene is always like an order of the things that you want to show. So you have one shot, but that shot is being communicated with the previous one and the next one. So it needs to be in the middle. So that's why it's super important. Transitions are crucial to create dynamic pieces. That's something that you need to remind yourselves a lot. It's like, if I want to create great videos, I want to create great animations, it's not just about one shot at a time. It's about the entire thing. And one shot is communicating with the previous one and the next one. That's something that you learn a lot in cinema, right? I study cinema. I have a bachelor in cinematographic post-production and also direction. So that's why I understand this concept. But it's super important to understand that the previous one and the next one are communicating each other. So that's how you see it here. If we go back to the example. Oh, because I reset that. So let me excuse me. So that's how they use this communication between scenes. Let's wait until they render all the scenes. But you see, it's like every movement is being communicated to the next one. Okay, so that's super important. So that's basically what we want to get this emphasis on this masterclass today. It's like these scenes is communicating with this one, because you know, even the rotation that the element has, the scene is rotating in the same direction. You see, and you'll start to see all this transition in all the pieces, well, you know, and every good pieces out there. Okay guys, so I hope you have fun on this one. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of these master classes. I will send you all the source files for everyone that connected to the call. So let's see you in the next one. I will start the posting, because and the next one is going to be a little interesting, because we're going to create a character. We're going to use character animation. So whatever they want to learn, that will, you know, we have just 100 spots on the call. So I mean, this gets sold out pretty quick. So let's go ahead and let's see you in the next one. Take care and peace.